The cage of stars. The barrier shimmered like a second sky. For 50 years it had hung above Earth, a translucent dome of impossible energy that turned the stars into prison bars. From the surface it looked almost beautiful, a soft pulsing glow that danced across the atmosphere in waves of blue and violet light. Children grew up pointing at it. Artists painted it. Poets wrote about it. But Admiral Jessica Hayes never stopped hating it. She stood on the observation deck of Luna Base Alpha, hands clasped behind her back, staring at the glowing wall that separated humanity from the rest of the universe. Her reflection stared back, older now, silver threading through her dark hair, lines etched deep around her eyes. 50 years of watching, 50 years of waiting, 50 years of planning. Admiral. The voice came from behind her. Commander David Rodriguez stepped forward, datapad in hand. His uniform was crisp, his posture military perfect, but his eyes held the same fire that burned in hers. Dr. Mitchell is ready. She says it's time. Hayes allowed herself the smallest smile. Then let's not keep her waiting. The journey to the Rocky Mountain Research Facility took 6 hours by suborbital transport. Hayes spent most of it in silence, reviewing the data streams one final time. Beside her, Rodriguez watched the Earth scroll past below. Vast cities connected by maglev rails. Orbital elevators stretching toward the barrier like fingers reaching for freedom. Do you think they know? Rodriguez asked quietly. The Council. Do you think they suspect? Hayes didn't look up from her datapad. They stopped watching us decades ago, Commander. To them we're a contained problem, neutralized, forgotten. She finally met his gaze. That was their first mistake. The facility was buried 3 kilometers beneath the mountains, a labyrinth of laboratories and quantum processors that had been built in absolute secrecy. Dr. Amanda Mitchell was waiting for them in the main research chamber, a vast space dominated by a holographic projection of the solar system, every planet and moon wrapped in the Council's shimmering containment fields. Mitchell looked exhausted, brilliant, victorious. 50 years, she said without preamble. 50 years I've been staring at this thing, Admiral, pulling it apart, studying every frequency, every harmonic resonance, every quantum fluctuation. She waved her hand, and the hologram zoomed in on Earth's barrier. And you know what I finally realized? Hayes stepped closer. Tell me. It's perfect. Mitchell's smile was razor sharp. Mathematically, geometrically, energetically, it's flawless. The Council built their containment technology on absolute symmetry. Perfect patterns, perfect balance, she paused. And that's exactly how we're going to beat them. Rodriguez frowned. I don't understand. How do you fight perfection? Mitchell's eyes gleamed. You introduce chaos, Commander. You give it something it was never designed to handle. Imperfection, asymmetry, humanity. She pulled up another display, showing a complex web of energy nodes. The barrier isn't just around Earth. There are 12 identical fields throughout this system. Mercury, Venus, Mars, the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. Even the Kuiper Belt stations. Every single one operating on the same frequency matrix. A network, Hayes said quietly. Exactly. Mitchell nodded. And networks have a weakness. They're connected. What affects one can affect them all, if you know how to make them talk to each other. She manipulated the hologram, drawing lines between the barriers. I've spent the last decade building quantum relay arrays, hidden, disguised as mining equipment, research stations, ice prospectors. The Council never looked twice. Hayes felt her pulse quicken. What are you saying, Doctor? I'm saying we can turn their own technology against them. Mitchell's voice was steel-wrapped in silk. We can make their perfect barriers reflect back on themselves. Create a feedback loop they never anticipated because their minds don't work like ours. They think in order. We think in solutions. Rodriguez stepped forward. How long until we're ready? We've been ready for 3 months, Mitchell said. I was waiting for the right moment. She looked at Hayes. And yesterday I got it. The hologram shifted, showing a new containment field. This one around a distant star system Hayes didn't recognize. The barrier was fresh, the energy signature identical to Earth's. The Scari, Mitchell said quietly. A newly discovered species, reptilian, technologically primitive. No threat to anyone. Her voice hardened. The Council quarantined them 2 weeks ago. Same excuse they used on us. Protective isolation for the good of galactic peace. Silence filled the chamber. Hayes stared at the image of another world trapped in a cage of light. Another species imprisoned for the crime of being different. Being young. Being unknown. They'll never stop, she said finally. Will they? No, Mitchell agreed. Not unless someone stops them. Hayes turned to face both of them. When she spoke, her voice carried 50 years of patience, preparation, and barely contained rage. Then it's time the galaxy learned what happens when you cage humanity. She looked at Mitchell. Activate the arrays, Doctor. All of them. Mitchell's fingers flew across the control interface. Throughout the solar system, 12 hidden quantum relay stations hummed to life. On Mercury, disguised as solar collectors. On Titan, buried beneath methane seas. In the asteroid belt, hidden inside hollowed-out rocks. One by one, they awakened, and humanity prepared to strike back. The Mirror Turns Europa station hung in the darkness like a jewel, a massive orbital platform that served as the Galactic Council's administrative heart. Inside its gleaming halls, representatives from 1,000 worlds gathered to celebrate a millennium of peace. Supreme Chancellor Vorin stood at the central podium, his crystalline features reflecting the soft glow of holographic displays. He was ancient even by council standards, his consciousness having passed through 17 host bodies over the centuries. Pride radiated from every gesture as he addressed the assembly. 1,000 years, he announced, his voice carrying through the chamber. 1,000 years since the council brought order to chaos. Since we ended the age of conflicts and ushered in an era of unprecedented harmony. Applause rippled through the crowd, a symphony of clicking mandibles, thrumming vocal sacs and harmonic resonances from species whose very biology defied human comprehension. We have quarantined the dangerous, Vorin continued, protected the innocent, contained those whose natures made them threats to galactic stability. His gaze swept the assembly, and today we celebrate the newest addition to our protective embrace, the Scari, safely isolated until such time as they evolve beyond their violent tendencies. More applause. More celebration. None of them noticed the subtle shift in energy readings 3 light minutes away. Beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Mitchell's hands moved with surgical precision across the quantum interface. Array 1 through 12 are online and synchronized, she reported. Frequency locks established. Harmonic resonance at 99.7%. Hayes stood beside her, eyes fixed on the holographic display. Every barrier in the solar system pulsed with soft blue light. 12 perfect spheres of energy, all singing the same mathematical song. The Council designed their containment fields to be impenetrable from the inside, Mitchell explained, her voice steady, despite the magnitude of what they were about to do. But they never considered someone might try to make them impenetrable from the outside too. Rodriguez looked up from his tactical station. All Terran Defense Forces are on standby, Admiral. If this works and the barriers come down, they won't come down, Commander, Hayes interrupted quietly. That's not the plan. Understanding dawned in Rodriguez's eyes. Then a fierce, savage grin. Mitchell's fingers hovered over the final command sequence. Admiral, once we do this, there's no going back. The Council will know. The galaxy will know. We'll have declared war on the established order of the universe. Hayes thought of 50 years in a cage, of generations born behind bars of light, of the Scari, and every other species the Council would imprison in the name of peace. Good, she said. Execute. Mitchell's hand came down. The quantum arrays fired simultaneously, not outward, inward. 12 beams of precisely calibrated energy struck 12 containment barriers from 12 different angles. But instead of trying to break through, they did something far more elegant. They mirrored the frequencies, the barriers, designed to contain energy from escaping, suddenly encountered their own perfect reflections, energy signals that matched them in every way. Wavelength, amplitude, phase. The fields did what they were programmed to do. They reflected the energy back, but the reflected energy was already a reflection. In less than a nanosecond, the feedback loop established itself. The barriers pulsed once, twice, then began to oscillate, their perfect mathematical patterns fracturing into chaos as they tried to contain themselves. Throughout the solar system, the containment fields flickered. On Mercury, a mining crew watched in stunned silence as the barrier above them dimmed, stuttered, and then inverted, folding inward instead of outward, its energy no longer keeping things in, but keeping things out. On Titan, research scientists saw their prison walls turn transparent, then opaque, then mirror-bright as the field reconfigured itself according to parameters it had never been designed to understand. And on Earth, 7 billion people looked up at the sky and saw their cage begin to turn. On Europa Station, alarms shrieked to life. Foreign's celebration died mid-sentence as emergency displays flooded the chamber with cascading red warnings. His crystal features went dark with confusion, then blazed with fury as he read the data streams. "The containment fields," someone shouted. "Sol system barriers are in cascade failure." "Impossible!" Foreign's voice cracked like breaking ice. "Those fields are impenetrable." "Perfect." A council technician's tentacles flew across holographic controls. "Chancellor, the fields aren't breaking, they're inverting. Something is forcing them to reflect their own energy matrices. The feedback loop is exponential." Another voice, this one tinged with panic. "Chancellor, we're detecting the same phenomenon spreading to other quarantine zones. The Skari containment field just inverted. The Kryn barriers are fluctuating." Foreign stared at the displays, watching in real time as containment fields throughout the galaxy began to mirror themselves. His mind, ancient and vast, struggled to comprehend what he was seeing. "How?" he whispered. "How is this possible?" The answer came 3 seconds later. Every communication channel in Europa Station activated simultaneously. The face that appeared on 1,000 displays was human, female, dark-skinned, with steel-gray eyes that burned with quiet fury. Admiral Jessica Hayes looked directly at the Supreme Chancellor and smiled. "Hello, Chancellor," she said. "Did you really think we'd stay in your cage forever?" Freedom's price. Foreign stared at the human face filling his displays, his crystalline features shifting through a spectrum of colors that betrayed his internal chaos. Shock, fury, and something the Chancellor rarely experienced, fear. "You," he breathed. "The humans. But your containment field is currently reflecting itself into a self-sustaining loop," Hayes interrupted calmly, "as are the 11 other barriers in our system. In approximately 43 seconds, the same will be true of every containment field in the galaxy." She leaned forward. "Including the ones around your core worlds." The chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives from 100 species shouted in a cacophony of languages. Foreign security detail moved forward, but he waved them back with a sharp gesture. "This is an act of war," he said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Do you comprehend what you've done?" "Perfectly." Hayes's expression never wavered. 50 years ago you imprisoned humanity. You called it protective. You called it necessary. You called it peace." Her eyes hardened. "We call it tyranny. And today, tyranny ends." A council military advisor's display showed spreading red alerts across the galaxy map. "Chancellor, confirmed inversions on 17 more quarantine worlds. The pattern is identical. Quantum feedback loops forcing the barriers to reflect inward." "How?" Foreign's composure finally cracked. "Your species was contained. Your technology primitive. How did you? You gave us 50 years. Dr. Mitchell's voice cut in as her face appeared beside Hayes's. 50 years to study your perfect technology. To understand it. To improve it. She smiled. You built your barriers on mathematical symmetry. Beautiful, elegant, flawless. She paused. And completely vulnerable to asymmetric warfare, which if you'd studied human history you would have known is our specialty. Rodriguez's voice joined them. All Terran defense forces are now active, Chancellor. Our ships have been hidden in the asteroid belt, the Kuiper belt, and Saturn's rings for the past 15 years. Every single one equipped with reverse-engineered council technology. He smiled grimly. Technology we improved. The galaxy map showed new signals, hundreds of them spreading outward from the Sol system like ripples in water. Human warships invisible to council sensors until this moment, all broadcasting the same modified quantum signature. Foreign's hands clenched. You would wage war against the entire Galactic Council? You're one world against thousands. No, Hayes said quietly. We're one world fighting for thousands. She gestured and the display split to show the Skari homeworld. The reptilian species that had been quarantined only weeks ago, their containment barrier flickered, inverted, and then vanished entirely as Mitchell's quantum arrays completed their work. The Skari are free, Hayes announced, as are the Kryn, the Delvari, the Morpheus cluster colonies, every species you've imprisoned in the name of peace. Her voice carried across the galaxy on every council frequency. Because that's what you never understood about humanity, Chancellor. We don't fight to conquer. We fight to liberate. Mitchell's fingers danced across her console. And just so we're clear, we didn't break your barriers. We turned them around. Right now, 17 Council core worlds are experiencing exactly what you forced on us. Your energy shields are containing you. Your stations are trapped. Your fleets can't move. Every quarantine zone in the galaxy is reversing, Rodriguez added. But we're not stopping there. We've planted the same modified quantum arrays on 200 Council military installations. With one command, we can invert your defensive shields, turn your weapons platforms inward, make every fortress you've built into a prison. Silence fell across Europa Station. Voran stared at the 3 human faces on his display, at the calm determination in their eyes, at the quiet fury of a species that had spent half a century planning this single devastating move. "What do you want?" he asked finally. Hayes' expression softened slightly. "What we've always wanted, freedom, not just for us, for everyone. No more quarantines. No more containment fields. No more imprisoning entire species because you've decided they're too dangerous, too young, too different. You're asking us to abandon 1,000 years of policy," Voran said, "to risk galactic chaos." "We're not asking," Mitchell interrupted. "We're telling you how it's going to be. You have 2 choices, Chancellor. 1, you can fight. Try to break through your own barriers. Send your fleets against our defenses. Watch as we turn every weapon you've built against the builders." She leaned forward. "Or 2, you can listen. Accept that the galaxy has changed, that humanity isn't going back in a cage, that no one should ever have been in a cage to begin with." Rodriguez pulled up a new display. Treaty documents, already drafted, already translated into 800 languages. "We're proposing a new council. One that operates through cooperation, not containment. Where species are elevated, not imprisoned. Where diversity is celebrated, not feared." "And if we refuse?" Voran asked quietly. Hayes' smile was cold as interstellar space. "Then you'll find out why the galaxy should have been afraid of us. Not because we're violent, not because we're unstable." She paused. "Because when you corner humanity, when you give us time and motivation and no other choice, we become brilliant." The silence stretched for 10 heartbeats. Then Voran's features shifted from fury to resignation to something. "That might have been respect. You've beaten us," he said finally. "Not with weapons. With patience. With intelligence." He looked at the spreading alerts on his displays, at the quarantine zones falling like dominoes, with a level of strategic thinking we failed to anticipate. "You failed to anticipate," Hayes corrected gently, "that we're not the enemy." "We never were." Voran studied her for a long moment. Then slowly he inclined his head. "Very well. The council will convene. We will discuss your terms." "Not discuss," Mitchell said. "Negotiate. As equals." "As equals," Voran repeated. The words seemed to pain him. But he said them. Hayes nodded. "Then let's begin. Rodriguez, signal all forces to hold position. Mitchell, maintain the barrier inversions until we have a signed agreement." She looked directly at Voran. "And Chancellor?" "Thank you." "For what?" Voran asked, surprised. "For the cage." Hayes' smile turned genuine. "You gave humanity 50 years of peace. 50 years to think, to plan, to prepare." She gestured at the displays showing human ships spreading throughout the galaxy, at the freed quarantine zones, at the new future taking shape. "You tried to protect the galaxy from us. Instead, you forced us to become exactly what the galaxy needed." She ended the transmission. Epilogue. The New Dawn. 3 months later, Luna Base Alpha hosted the first meeting of the reformed Galactic Council. Hayes stood on the same observation deck where she'd spent 50 years watching their prison. But now when she looked up, she saw stars. Pure, unfiltered, beautiful stars. The barrier was gone. Not destroyed, transformed. The same energy that had caged Earth now powered a network of peaceful communication relays, connecting worlds that had been isolated for centuries. Rodriguez joined her, carrying 2 glasses of champagne. "Dr. Mitchell sends her regards. She's on Scary Prime, helping them rebuild their deep space communication systems." Hayes accepted the glass. "And the council?" "Adapting, slowly. Chancellor Vorin actually complimented our negotiating tactics yesterday. Called them distressingly effective. Rodriguez grinned. I think that's diplomat speak for you outsmarted us and we're still mad about it. Hayes laughed, a sound she hadn't made in decades. Good, let them be mad, as long as they remember the lesson, which is, that cages don't make anyone safer. She looked out at the stars, at the distant points of light that were now reachable, explorable, free. They just make whoever's inside very, very motivated to escape. They stood in comfortable silence, watching Earth's ships launch toward the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as partners, as liberators, as proof that humanity's greatest strength had never been violence. It was the refusal to surrender, the UA, ability to turn a prison into a laboratory, and the patience to wait 50 years for the perfect moment to strike back. They caged us to protect the galaxy, Hayes said quietly. Raising her glass to the stars, Rodriguez smiled and raised his. Now the galaxy doesn't need protection anymore. They drank to freedom and to the species that had proven that even the strongest cage is no match for human ingenuity. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again.